Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Ishan Gera and here are the stories for the day. Return of foreign investors and easing of commodity prices breathes a new lease of life into the Indian equities as benchmark indices soared over 4% last week. Our next report tells more about this bull run and tries to find if it will sustain.
India's benchmark stock index Sensex rallied 390 points last Friday, capping its best week since February 2021 and scaling a 7-week high. The 30-share BSE index rose 4.3%, while the NSE Nifty 50 index was up 4.2% for the week as foreign investors poured about $1 billion into equities. The breather came after quite a long time. Overseas funds have been on a selling spree since October 2021, when the Indian markets peaked. Since then, they have pulled out $35 billion from the markets, with nearly $30 billion of that in 2022 alone. Last week, foreign investors marked their first net buying in 16 weeks. This has also helped the monthly foreign flow tally turn positive for the first time since September 2021. Commodity prices have been on a downward slope amid fears of a demand slowdown. Meanwhile, economists see the US and Europe entering recession by 2023. Given this, investors believe that central banks may not be as aggressive in their monetary tightening approach as factored in earlier. Commodities like steel, crude oil, and palm oil have corrected sharply over the last few weeks. While Brent crude has shed around 13% from the year's high, palm oil prices have dropped around 30% from the peak. This has been comforting given the country's rising import bill. Further, with retail inflation moderating for a second consecutive month in June to 7.01%, investors are betting on hopes that inflation may have peaked in India.
Markets have corrected almost 15% from the peaks, and not only because of the FI selling, because basically factoring in a lot of global challenges. Most of these events are now factored in. If you see, India, RBI has already taken sharp rate hikes. The Fed, with the upcoming rate hike next week, would be over with bulk of the rate hike. And we have seen now that the commodity prices globally have also started softening from their highs. So we are expecting that the inflation would have peaked out by now. And with the valuations being comfortable, with most of the events being factored in, they are now turning favorable for FIs to start buying again. FIs inflow should become stable now. So if you even look at the FI holdings, and that has come down from about 22% to about 17% shareholding for FIs within the Nifty 500 companies. So market is right now kind of factoring in a 75 basis points rate hike by Fed. And if they were to be so aggressive to do a 100 basis points rate hike, I think market in the short term will definitely react negatively. And we might see a few days of FI selling. But I think mostly the July rate hike is factored in and should not impact the flows in a big way. So worst of selling should be over from FIs. Mid caps had fallen sharply compared to large caps. And that is where I think the much bigger upside can be seen if FIs were to come back consistently with net inflows.
Amid an upbeat mood, US indices have risen 4 to 7% in the last 5 sessions as corporate earnings have fared better than expected. Among the big names, Netflix reported a lower fall in subscriber count, while Tesla beat Wall Street's revenue estimates, despite the shutdowns in China. Of the roughly 90 companies that have so far reported numbers from the S&P 500 universe, nearly 78% have reported earnings above analysts' expectations, according to a CNBC report. Corporate earnings back home have also been better than expected. IT majors have delivered decent revenue growth despite a hit on profit margins, and the companies remain confident about a sustained demand momentum. FMCG major Hindustan Unilever posted robust top-line and bottom-line growth with much better volumes. Among others, HDFC Bank and IndusInd Bank also posted healthy numbers. UR Bhatt, the co-founder of Alphaniti Fintech, said that bad loans seem to be under reasonable control, adding that the demand for credit growth going up gives some of the larger banks pricing power. Economists expect the US Federal Reserve to opt for a 75 basis point rate hike rather than a large move at its next meeting as the likelihood of recession rises. A weakening US dollar, valuations turning comfortable in India, buying by foreign investors, hopes of inflation peaking, and that the US Fed may be less aggressive in hiking rates are helping Indian stocks stage a recovery.
सब अच्छी दिख रही हैं यार, कौन सी खरीदूं?
ये तो वही बात हुई, 4000 शेयर्स लिस्टेड है, कौन सा लूं?
वो तो सबसे आसान है।
तुझे 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा पर है 4000 स्टॉक्स की रिसर्च, टेक्निकल टूल्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है, investing made easy and rewarding with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Markets keep on pulling surprises every now and then. So do women pacers with their Yorkers and bouncers. But pitch has always been queered against them when it comes to earnings. Cricket has always been tilted towards gentlemen, like most other sports. Our next report delves deep into the thorny issue of pay gap and tells what could be done to bring some parity.
A recent IIM Ahmedabad survey has found that corporates are making a big push to bridge the gender gap for senior executives. But when it comes to sports, there is not much breakthrough, barring some exceptions. In a watershed moment for women's sport, New Zealand cricket has decided to award equal match pay for both women and men at both the domestic and international levels. This move is expected to bring some change in the way other countries, sports bodies, and associations look at paying sports women. Meanwhile, Indian cricket still has a lot of ground to cover. Despite BCCI being the richest cricket body and having the financial heft and wherewithal to initiate path-breaking changes in pay structures for women, not much progress is seen. According to the BCCI pay structure, the highest grade men international cricketer, that is grade A+, will bag 7 crore rupees in annual salary, while cricketers in the following grades A, B and C get 5 crore rupees, 3 crore and 1 crore respectively. Meanwhile, highest grade international women cricketers get only 50 lakh rupees in annual salary, while women cricketers in grade B and C earn 30 lakh rupees and 10 lakh rupees. The disparity is not just in India, but also a global phenomenon plaguing the sport. If we look at the prize money at Premier World Cup events, while 2019 Men's World Cup champions took home a prize money of $4 million, women champions bagged only a fraction of the sum at $1.32 million. A 2017 study by BBC Sport found that 83% of global sports award men and women the same prize money, and cricket is not one of these sports. The International Cricket Committee plans to equalize the prize money for winners in its men's and women's tournaments in the next 8-year cycle starting from 2024 to 2031.
There is a fan following. What we talk about, there is a popularity we talk about. If you see a full stadium in a men's cricket match, and whether it's IPL or a ICC World Cup games, the good part is there are a lot of fan following. People come and pay the tickets. There are a whole stadium which is full house. So a full house stadium in a men's match gives that relevance of why they have been so highly paid. Obviously, the women's cricket is developing to a great extent, but then it will take some time for us to see that gap, thinning down. Women's cricket, women cricketers are very sought of in terms of endorsements and appearances. The only thing is the commercial value of a women cricketer in terms of appearances and endorsement is less than the men's cricket. number of endorsements and number of appearances of women have really jacked up very well, which is a very positive point in coming days of cricket.
If we look at our sports in India, even though there is no contract-based system, there is some effort being made to bring gender parity. Recently, the Table Tennis Federation of India decided to give the same pay or prize money to women as that of men in all tournaments and competitions of the game of table tennis. Like in table tennis, all badminton tournaments, including India's premier event, the India Open, gives equal prize money to winners in the men and women categories. In hockey, daily allowances and sponsorships are equally split for players in the national camp. However, the domestic level scenario is different.
इंडिया टीम में है वो तो सेम मिल रहे हैं, लेकिन जो डोमेस्टिक में हमारे कंपटीशन होते हैं, जैसे कि आप देखते हो मेंस के काफी कंपटीशन होता है, काफी टूर्नामेंट खेलने को मिलते हैं, विमेंस को नहीं मिलते। कंपटीशन भी हमारे विमेंस के बहुत कम होते हैं, मेंस के बहुत साल में बहुत सारे टूर्नामेंट होते हैं, उनको काफी कंपटीशन मिलते हैं, विमेंस को नहीं मिलते। हम देखते हैं जैसे हम लोग खेलने जाते हैं तो हम लोगों को वो चीज में स्टेडियम तो विमेंस के लिए भी इतना ही भरेगा। अभी हॉलैंड में वर्ल्ड कप चल रहा है, आप स्टेडियम देखो कितना भरा हुआ है, तो स्टेडियम इतने ही देखने को मिलते हैं। हमारे इंडिया के अंदर ही ऐसा है कि विमेंस को थोड़ा कम मतलब पहचान या कम जो है वो मिलती है। पहले से तो काफी अच्छा हुआ है, ऐसा नहीं कह सकते, हम बिल्कुल ब्लेम नहीं कर सकते। मैं इस चीज के उसमें नहीं हूँ कि बिल्कुल ही भाई जैसे विमेंस को पहले देखा जाता था ऐसा नहीं है। अभी बहुत चेंज हो गया और शायद में भी धीरे धीरे इसको हम चेंज कर पाएंगे, सोसाइटी में लोगों की सोच को बदल पाएंगे।
For elite competitions other than cricket, the Target Olympic Podium scheme, designed to improve Indian performance in Olympics, hands over a monthly stipend of 50,000 rupees for each athlete irrespective of the gender. Women's sport in India is better placed now in terms of facilities, match fees and sponsorship deals when compared with 2 decades or even a decade ago. However, there is scope for a lot of progress. If sport authorities can look at creating a favorable environment and make sports accessible to more and more women, it is a step in the right direction towards pay parity.
यार
मत पूछ यार,
फिर से स्टॉक्स में फंस गया।
तो स्टॉक्स के साथ बॉन्ड्स, इंश्योरेंस, गोल्ड में बैलेंस कर।
इसमें बहुत तामझाम है।
तुझे 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा है ऑल इन वन अकाउंट। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है। Investing made easy and rewarding with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
But experts also say that the market for the women's side of the game is limited, and tournament directors cite this market theory to justify the higher payouts to men. Meanwhile, from sports, let us move on to markets. Global financial markets are waiting with bated breath for the outcome of the 2-day US Federal Reserve meeting this week. Our next report tells what leading analysts expect from the US Central Bank. They also share their views on how you should approach the event.
Besides the results of index heavyweights such as Reliance Industries, Infosys, Kotak Mahindra Bank and ICICI Bank that will impact market sentiment on Monday, all eyes will be on the outcome of the 2-day-long meeting of the US Federal Reserve that will end on July 27. Analysts expect the US Central Bank to get aggressive in its endeavor to tame the galloping inflation that hit 9.1% in June, the highest reading since 1981. Most analysts expect a hike between 75 to 100 basis points by the US Central Bank on Wednesday. Christopher Woods of Jefferies, for instance, believes the announcement of the June CPI data point will likely lead to the Fed announcing another 75 basis point rate hike on July 27. Philip Mary of Rabobank International, on the other hand, says it would now be a shock if the Fed did not hike rates by 100 basis points in July. Earlier in June, The US Fed had hiked interest rates by 75 basis points, the biggest hike in 28 years, in a move to cap this flying inflation. So, to what extent are the Indian markets pricing in this steep hike? Should you brace for another sell-off around the event? Remember, rising inflation and steep rate hikes amid geopolitical concerns have already dented market sentiment across the globe. The S&P 500 is down over 20% year to date. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Nasdaq too have slipped 13% and 28% respectively during this period. Back home, the S&P BSE Sensex and the Nifty 50 have dropped around 6% each. Now let's hear what Devang Mehta, Head Equity Advisory, Centrum Wealth, has to say.
The 9.1% inflation print which came in US last week had a probability to sort of rattle the markets because the participants could have anyways thought about a 75 bips to 100 bips rate hike. The consensus there was around 8.8 and 9.1 was certainly a 4-decade high. Unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures. So probably right now markets are factoring in a 75 bips rate hike and even a certain quarter of the market talking about 100 bips of a rate hike. Certainly, yes, probably once the rate hike is done or around the policy, there would be some bit of volatility. I think markets have been matured enough to again record that inflation and interest rates are going to go upwards from here. But also a certain forecast and the US yields, it shows that somewhere in March 2023, there would be also probability of rate cuts. So I think one thing is good that the slow poison which is there in the system is now getting sort of accelerated, and rate hikes, if it is done earlier, probably it has a little bit of teeth to curb inflation. So that is on the US markets. On the Indian market front, we feel that somewhere around 15,500, 15,800, there is a good valuation support, and nowhere I'm talking about any technical support. Why I say this? Because if you factor in a FY24 EPS of say 1,000 rupees on Nifty, I think somewhere around 15.5, 15.8 is right now the valuation zone, which is very supportive because 16.5 is the long-term average, and we are somewhere below the long-term average in terms of the PE ratio. Also on a price to book value or market cap to GDP, also we are somewhere close to the fair value zone. So somehow we are in an attractive value zone where we feel a lot of participants and a lot of interest is sort of generated in the investing community. Yes, volatility will be the only constant, but one factor which I find positive in July is that the FII selling has come down. So again, we advise the investors to probably pick up good businesses.
So over the next couple of days, the markets will digest the US Fed action, react to June quarter results of India Inc. and remain choppy ahead of the expiry of futures and contracts for the July series.
अब क्या किया?
शेयर्स में ट्रेडिंग।
तुम्हें 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
ओए, अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा पर मिलते हैं रिसर्च टूल्स, पोर्टफोलियो एनालिटिक्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज भी। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है, investing made easy and reporting with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Like the US's central bank, a new grouping of India, US, Israel and UAE is catching everyone's attention. Called I2U2, this coalition is quite different from others. Let us find out more about it.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on July 14th joined US President Joe Biden, Israeli PM Yair Lapid, and UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in the first ever meeting of I2U2. The leaders identified and agreed to work towards common areas of mutual interest. The acronym I2 stands for India and Israel, and U2 stands for US and UAE. I2U2 was first conceptualized during a meeting of the foreign ministers of the 4 countries in October last year. Not only the government synergies, the group will also aim to leverage private sector capital and expertise for many areas of economic cooperation. Each country will also have Sherpa-level interactions regularly. The I2U2 bloc will focus on joint investments in 6 mutually identified areas such as water, energy, transportation, space, health, and food security. While some alliances are crucial for enhanced cooperation on pressing issues plaguing the world, some of them became redundant over the years as they either failed or fell short in achieving the ambitious goals they had set out. So, is there a need for one more such bloc, and what are its geopolitical implications? As each of the 4 countries emerge as technological hubs, Washington could use the alliance to further expand its partnerships and reframe relationships in the Middle East that have suffered under the Donald Trump regime. I2U2 could not only help India deepen its ties with the Middle East, but also present an opportunity to expand ties with the US beyond Asia. The inaugural I2U2 leaders meeting focused on the food security crisis and clean energy. Under the framework, the UAE has agreed to invest $2 billion to develop a series of integrated food parks across India that will incorporate state-of-the-art climate-smart technologies. The US and Israeli private sectors will lend their expertise to the project. On the clean energy front, the US will set up a 300 megawatts hybrid renewable energy project in Gujarat's Dwarka with an investment of $330 million. The project will be complemented by a battery energy storage system.
I will achieve, I will fly high. I
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan recently said that I2U2 can become a feature of the West Asian region, just like the Quad is for the Indo-Pacific. That's all for today. For more news and analysis, please log on to businessstandard.com. We'll be back tomorrow with the next episode. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.